Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Mark Moyer doing some great things with his networking events. There's another one this afternoon at 4 p.m. That is where I met today's guest. I'm Matt Wolff, founder, CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Ruben Gonzalez in the Wolff Den. Welcome to the Wolff Den. How's everything going?
Hey, great to be here, Matt. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to get into everything in a minute, but for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, just give us a real quick introduction.
Sure. I'm a four-time Olympian. I did the luge in four Olympics. I'm an unlikely Olympian, and you'll find out soon about that. I'm a best-selling author. Sold over 300,000 copies in 10 languages. I'm a real best-selling author, not like one of those Amazon ones. And I've been a professional speaker for 20 years this month. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, any one of those things would be worth celebrating and having a whole conversation about. So excited to talk about a little bit of all of that. And I always like to go sort of backwards, right? We're not going to start where you started from yet. You, as you look at the bottom, follow the leader TED Talk. You just recently published a TED Talk. Why did you do that? I mean, you're a speaker, right? You've spoken a lot. You've got a great story. Why did you want to do a TED Talk, and what was that experience like?
It was tough, I tell you, because I speak from the heart. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories that, give people points on how to reach their goals faster. And the TED Talk is so I'm jazz. The TED Talk is very structured. It's more like classical music. And so I had to memorize it and shorten my stories. And I practiced for months to make it happen. But it's just one of those things you want to do. It has a very high perceived value, and you never know. If enough people watch it, that can really put you in the map. So it's a neat thing. And so I don't know if I'll do another one because I've done it now. I checked that box, but I'm excited I got to do it, and fortunately, all the preparation paid off.
I like the idea of it, but I'm probably in your camp where me memorizing stuff it'd be a huge disaster for me. I just like this, we kind of just have a conversation and talk. And if you want me to talk about something, I'll talk about it. But it's not for me trying to memorize stuff. I was never good at memorizing. It's probably why I was more of a street smart person instead of a book smart at
Yeah,
school.
same here. And it's funny. Lots of speakers, I'd say the majority of speakers, they have a canned talk or a couple of canned talks where it sounds like they're memorized because they never change, and it comes across it's too polished, too good. And I speak from, it's more of a conversation. It's from the heart. And people always say it afterwards, man, you're so real, you're so genuine. And I laugh. I say, it's easier that way.
Yeah.
It's easier for me. And so people appreciate genuineness, right? And when you write a book, you don't want to sound like a college professor. You want to use, normal English, right? Like you're talking to your friends. And so, again, you just have to be real, and I think that pays off.
But you also doing keynote speaking for a long time. It's interesting because you are kind of scripted on that, although no one's going to know if you went off mark and kind of improvise on that, which you cannot do on a TED Talk. So it's similar, but it's very different. What was that experience like, differing from the speeches that you do?
Well, they wanted it to be under 15 minutes, and so I took three stories that are really, really good stories, exciting and fun, and but I had to shorten them, right, to fit, and I had to change. One story can illustrate 10 different things, right, and so they all had to illustrate and lead to the importance of following the leader. In the case of mine, I was always very hard-headed and perseverant. And that's why I took up the sport of luge. I thought it looks like a lot of broken bones, maybe a lot of quitters. I won't quit. And so that perseverance and bulldoggedness was good. But in my case, I took it to the extreme and to where I would reject my coach's advice. I would fight it, right? I was a hardhead. And it took me 3 Olympics to get to the point where I finally realized, I need to start listening. I mean, applying right away. And when I started doing that, it was incredible. I started improving, and I was sliding better at 55 years old than I was, when I was younger. And so it made me realize that, hey, perseverance is good, but you don't want to be a fathead where you're going to listen to your coach or mentor's advice. So it's a simple thing, but something that everybody needs to do, and it'll help you reach your goals faster. And so doing it, it was tough for me, right? Because it was my mind kept going back to the original stories. And I tell you, I said that TED Talk in the shower for several months. I mean, I can't. I walk into the shower now. It's been a month since we shot it, and I still, part of me starts telling the talk. I have to realize, no, I don't need to do that anymore. It's done.
Yeah, you don't need to do that anymore, but it's habit. Like that's part of the ritual
Yeah.
of being an athlete, of being a speaker. It's all habit. Like, repetition is a huge part of any type of
Yeah.
anything you're trying to do and trying to do well. This is repetition. How close can you repeat what it was? And that's the athlete part of it. And that's also the speaking part of it. Because if you start missing, one line, I got bar mitzvahed, and I was terrible at I skipped over a whole line, and nobody knew, right? Nobody knew,
Right.
and I just
Yeah.
kept going. And that's
Yeah.
part of the key to it, is just kind of acting like whatever happened was supposed to happen, and maybe even in speaking too, like you can forget where you're at, and you could stop and whine about it and complain, or you can just go on and
Yeah.
we all make mistakes, not a big
Oh,
deal.
yeah, yeah. And, I'm ADD big time. Okay, and that's good. For an entrepreneur, that means you can hyper focus on what's important, but you can, it's good. It helps me. But at a talk, for example, I've got about 5 hours of really good stories, right, that illustrate different points. And so, I'll talk to the meeting planner before. What's your goal? What's your challenge? What's the theme of your event? Once I know those three things, I know which stories to include, and then how to transition, and it comes out okay. But sometimes I'll go, I'll shift gears if I feel that I'm on stage. If I feel I need to shift gears because I just feel it, I will. And sometimes I'll go off on a tangent, and then I'll actually tell the people on the front row, hey, keep track, okay? Because I won't forget where I am. So you need to pay attention. And they think I'm making it up, but it's true. And so but it works because that makes you real, right? And they realize that guy's just like me, and it works.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Olympics because that's why we're here today. The Olympics, right? If you became an Olympic athlete, the longevity of it, that allowed you to do everything else that you've done, correct?
Yes, it created a platform, right? Where you have where I had some credibility and I could do those other things. Absolutely.
So we just had a Winter Olympics, and interesting enough, the bobsleigh luge. I mean, that there was a lot of excitement in that with this new monobob, and it
Yeah.
helped that we had Olympic. The USA had the top two competitors. What do you think about adding that? Is that something that you might have preferred to do instead of the luge? It's very similar, right?
Well, the thing with it, no, I probably wouldn't have made it in the bobsled because uh, I wasn't a great athlete. I'm an unlikely Olympian. I was always the last kid picked for PE and sports because I'm a slowpoke. I mean, I got a lot of heart but no body, and kind of like Rudy. And so when I was 21, I decided I'd always had the Olympic dream, but it was a pipe dream because I didn't believe it was possible. When I was 21, I see Scott Hamilton win the gold medal in figure skating at the Sarajevo Games, and he gave me hope. I thought if that little guy can win, I can at least play. I'm going to be in the next ones. I just got to find a sport. Well, I'm 21. I'm going to find I looked at the list of the summer sports. It took me 5 minutes to realize you got to be a super athlete to do any of that stuff. Forget it. Then I started looking at the winter sports, and that's when the analytical side of my brain kicked in. I thought, I'm about to put together a plan for the next 4 years. My strength's not athleticism. My strength's perseverance. My nickname was Bulldog in high school because I was, hard head. So I thought I need to find a sport with a lot of broken bones, maybe a lot of quitters, and I just won't quit. And so back then they didn't have monobob; they had 4-man and 2-man. But I thought, no, a team that's too complicated. And then skeleton, they didn't have skeleton back then. But even if they had, I'm not fast enough for that. You got to have that running start. And so luge, I figured I can do that. And I went to Lake Placid, took up the sport of luge, and they cram 10 years of training into just 2 years, because the next 2 years I had to compete internationally, try to be in the top 50 in the world. And so I got hurt a lot, but I kept coming back and I made it. And I got to go to 4 Olympics. And so to answer your question, if they had monobob back then, monobob, you're protected. You're like in a little car, right? If you crash, you duck your head and you're okay. And so that wouldn't have fit because there wouldn't have been enough quitters. And you got to run, right? You got to have that powerful run to start that monobob. It looks like a blast. I would love to do it. I've ridden on the back of a bobsled twice, and both times I thought I'd rather be driving. I think it'd be a blast to do it. And one day I will. Just for fun.
So Olympics, it's my friend Brain. I think you have to be a little bit.
Hey, Brent. No, I'm not a lunatic. I'm just crazy about making it to the Olympics. That's it.
Yeah, but you have to have. I mean, there's a certain thought about doing some of these. Even the skiers who are professional skiers, they've done it a million times. They're falling, and I mean, it's a lot different than some of your other sports that you might be trying to get into.
Yeah.
Which is why maybe there's less people competing in it. Not that it makes it any less impressive. You make the Olympics, you're the top 1% of the 1% of the world at something.
Right. And when I looked at started looking at the winter sports, I thought, okay, bobsled. I had down to bobsled, ski jump, and luge. I never skied before, so forget ski jump. That'd have been a suicide. And bobsled, you need, 3 other nuts, right? I didn't even know about the 2-man bob back then. And then and luge you can do by yourself. So I thought, no, I got to go with the simple way. And so at first they wouldn't take me. I mean, I called Lake Placid, and even before I called, I didn't know where the track was. And I wrote Sports Illustrated. I asked them, where do you go learn how to luge? And they said, Lake Placid, New York. And I called Lake Placid, and at first the guy said, you're too old. You're 21. You should have 10 years experience. There's no way. And I wouldn't hang up the phone. I mean, that'd have been the end of the dream. I just kept talking to him, and I guess finally got fed up. He said, we got a camp coming up in a few weeks. Be there. And so I went. And but he told me, before you come here, you need to know 2 things. Number one, you want to do it at your age, and you want to do it in just 4 years, it's brutal. 9 out of 10 people quit. When he said that, I started smiling. I thought, this was right to my plan. That's awesome, right?
That's great news.
Yeah. And so what's the second thing? He said, expect to break some bones. And I said, great, and he thought I was nuts, right? Thought I was a lunatic. But my thinking was, hey, the more quitters, the better shot I got. And before I went, when I hung up that phone, it's kind of like the reality hit. I thought, whoa, he says I will break some bones, not I might. So how am I going to handle it, right, when I break a bone? And I thought, hey, I've broken bones before. You wear a cast for 6 weeks, take off the cast, it's healed up stronger than before. So it's really a temporary inconvenience. So I reframed it in my brain, and I had a contingency plan. And so I go, and meanwhile, everybody else is quitting because they got a bruise, right? They didn't think it's going to hurt. They thought, hey, downhill, laying down, doesn't get any easier than that. But I went in knowing this is going to be war, right? It's going to be a battle, and I need to be strong. And so I always tell people, you have to have a contingency plan, right? You hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst, right? And then you got a shot, you got a better shot, and then outwork the competition, right?
I grew up in the Cool Runnings era. That was what a great movie. And based on a true story, the great comes full circle this year where the Jamaican bobsled team actually qualifies for it. And we had Darren Steele on, who we all met at thing. And if I remember correctly, his story was that someone was the majority of these luge and bobsled and some of these other things is that people are recruiting you because they see what you can do and say, let's see if we can apply this elsewhere. The Herschel Walker stories,
Yeah.
But you're going in trying to say, hey, I can do this, not getting recruited, but trying to go in. So either one is a remarkable story, but for you to go and say, hey, I'm going to do this, and then I go ahead and do it. And this is before Cool Runnings ever happened, and before bobsled was like, at some point it became like a cool thing to do, right? And this is before it was. And so what was the feedback that you got? Forget about the first person who said, and you got it. Once you're there and you're in it and you're among these people who maybe have been doing it for 15 years, that's got to be a hard pill for people to swallow, to see you come in. And it really is a Rudy type thing.
Yeah. So Cool Runnings was the Calgary 88 Olympics. That was their first Olympics and my first Olympics, and Eddie the Eagle. Okay. And I'm still waiting to get my movie. I mean, everybody's got a movie but me. But anyways, it was so I had only been luging for 2 years, okay? I was about as good as a luge guy as a kid that just got their driver's permit, okay? 16-year-old kid. Now imagine that kid, they put him in this room because now I got to compete against the best in the world, right? The Olympic champions and the best. Now that kid, they put him in this room, and right outside that door, that wall, is the Indianapolis 500 Speedway. And he starts looking around. He says, "Oh my gosh, that's AJ Foyt. That's Mario Andretti. That's Al Unser. What am I doing here? I just got my driver's permit." You're going to be racing against them. And so that's how I felt. I had this crisis of confidence. And meanwhile, the Germans, who totally dominate the sport, they're not giving me the time of day, all right? Because I hadn't paid the price yet. They'd been doing it ever since they were 5 years old, some of these people. And here I show up and I'm competing in a World Cup, with no experience. And so they just wouldn't give me the time of day. And I would go to the darkest corner of that start house. That's where it's kind of like a locker room where you get ready. And I would just put on blinders and I just focus on the World Cup points. I just got to get World Cup points. And I wouldn't even talk to anybody. And it wasn't until 2 years after my first Olympics, 2 years after the Calgary Olympics, it was like a memo went out, right? The Germans, all of a sudden, they accepted me. They go, "Hey, Gonzalez, Speedy Gonzalez, hey, how are you?" And I got pissed, right? I said, "What's wrong with you guys? I've been nice to you for years, and now I'm Speedy Gonzalez." And he goes, "Oh, come, we must talk to you." And the whole team, coaches, the athletes, they all, got together with me, and they gave me the talk, right? They said, "Look, we've got 4 tracks in the country the size of Texas, all right? We've been doing this ever since we were toddlers. And first we're the best in our town, then the best in our region. Then we made the national team, right? Only 10 men get to do that. And then we made the Olympic team, only 3 men. And we'll be lucky to do 2 Olympics because there's so many great losers coming up through our system. But when we're done, we're going to coach for the rest of our lives because we love the sport. And we're sick and tired of people from other countries. They come, they do 1 Olympics, they disappear. You know what we call them?" I said, "No, what?" "Oh, Olympic tourist, always with a little camera." Well, this is 2 years after your first Olympics. Obviously, you're trying to make the Albertville Olympics in France. Whether you make it or not doesn't matter to us, okay? What matters is you're respecting the sport, so you've earned our respect. And I tell you, man, I got goosebumps right now telling you that story because that was like winning the gold medal for me, right? It was like and that's why when you watch Cool Runnings, I never understood it till this happened, right? They weren't getting bullied because they were black. They were getting bullied because they hadn't paid the price yet. It was the same thing. They'd only been sliding for 4 months. Yeah, but then they they stayed in the game long enough, and they learned the skills, and they were already good runners, and so they earned their respect. And now, heck, they got a Disney movie. They're laughing all the way to the bank, right? So you have to stay in the game long enough to learn some skills, and then you use those skills to reach the dream. And you don't hop around things. All you do is hop around from one thing to another, you're always at the beginner stage. You're always suffering. No, stay in. Do what
But
you're
you have to
passionate
be good at, you have to get to a certain level and be good enough to qualify for Olympics. It's not, they don't just let anyone in there. So
about. Right.
I guess the question is how good were you, and did you achieve the goals that you wanted to do or thought you might? Obviously the goal is to win a gold every time you compete.
Well, that's really not the goal for everybody.
Goals
Okay.
to finish,
Think, no,
right?
think about the NFL or the NBA. Okay, it's the beginning of the season. There's only a handful, if that many, teams that have a shot to
Right.
even go to the Super Bowl or to win. Everybody else is either in reconstruction or they're never going to make it, right?
Right.
And so the same thing's true at the Olympics. The top, back in it used to be top 50 men got to go. Then now it's down to top 35 men get to go, and so the top. There might be a handful of guys that have a real shot at a medal. And then there's the next layer is the guys who are trying to make top 10. In fact, for me, the way it worked, and there's all these pride races going on within the race, but people don't see that. Only the guys who are racing know about that. back in the old days, my best friend in the luge circuit was Pablo Garcia from Spain. And he was always about 5 spots ahead of me whenever we raced. And so for me, if I beat Pablo, man, I'll be grinning for the rest of my life, right? Well, Pablo doesn't care about me. He's already got me. He's looking for the Swede that's always beating him by about 5 slots, right? If he can beat that Swede, the Swede's looking at the Czech's looking at an Italian, the Italian looking at the German up at the top. So there's all of these. And so for 80% of the athletes at the Olympics, opening ceremonies is a gold medal. You're getting to play with the big boys. You qualify to get to be, racing in the greatest arena in the world, and that's your gold medal.
So with these Olympics, a little bit different, and the winter maybe not as much as the summer. Like for you as a luge, you have people who are there, but you don't need like huge crowds roaring in the way that other sports did, right?
Yeah, when you're in Germany, a World Cup race or a World Championship or maybe a European Championship, it's great. I mean, there's tons of people there, but most of the time it's just a few people at it. It's not a big spectator sport. And
Yeah.
at the Olympics, there is. I mean, they got the cowbells. I mean, they're having a party. You're trying to focus on your run up at the start, and there's thousands of people in front of you going nuts with the partying, basically. And you just got to, and you got a big camera right in front of you, too, this guy filming you. And you just have to, push all that stuff out and just focus on, what you got to do. And, yeah.
You participated in 4 Olympics in 4 different decades, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's remarkable longevity that just doesn't happen in almost any sport. I don't even know what other sport someone might have done it, but a lot of people experience 1 Olympics, right? And that's the only time they ever get. And so you're training 4 years to kind of go and might not make it. That's the significance of the Olympics. And really it should be any sport. You never know when you're going to get a chance to be at the top of the sport. And so it's so important, those 4 years, and it's laser focus, right? You don't have the experience of not making it, but I know you've been around the people who have, and what's the feeling about that makes you really appreciate where you got to?
We're long-term thinkers, obviously. And the more long-term thinker you are in any field, the better it is. Because if you can stay focused on that long-term thing, then your day-to-day decision making will be better. If all you care about is feeling good today, right, and you're not thinking about the future, you're short-term thinker, then you won't get anywhere, right? And so we will train for 4 years, and our goal might be to improve our time by 1/10 of a second. If we improved our time by 1/10 of a second, and we're consistently good, right? Not just once in a while, because the Olympics is 4 runs, so good is not good enough. You have to be consistently good. Then it's you just fine tuning all the time, and the luge is the only Olympic sport, winter or summer, that's timed to the 1/1000th of a second. So everything counts. I mean, even your breathing counts. If you hold your breath the whole way down, a luge runs about a minute. Anybody can hold their breath for a minute if they're scared half to death. Well, you're automatically a half a second slower because you were too tight and too slow reaction time. So little things make a big difference. And if you do the work, and then when you make it, and either way you win. Okay. When I started training, I did Calgary in '88. Albertville, France in '92. Then I quit. For about 6 or 7 years, I didn't slide at all. I just wanted to do other things. And my coach then started talking 5 years before Salt Lake City. He starts talking me into coming back. And I came back, and I brought my brother in, and we both made it. We made Olympic history. We both, first time 2 brothers compete against each other in the men's luge. That was Salt Lake. And then I was 39 there. Everybody thought I was a coach. All right. They would say, "What are you coaching?" "No, I'm an athlete." "Oh, come on." And so I started thinking maybe this is the last one. And then when I came back home, I started speaking and writing books, and building that business kept me busy for about 6 years. And then I got bored. It was humming. It was doing okay. I had good momentum there. I got bored. I thought, hey, no one's ever done 4 Winter Olympics in 4 different decades. That'd be cool to be the first one to do that. I started training again. and I made Vancouver at 47. Now they thought I was coach's dad, right? But on the way to Vancouver, I was thinking, whether I make it or not, I win. If I give it my all, because you have to dig, if you go for it and you refuse to quit and you dig deep inside, you start finding your God-given talents, right? Your gifts. And whether you make it or not, you got those gifts for the rest of your life, right? So it's not really about the dream, it's about the person you become in the pursuit of the dream, right? The
Yeah.
Olympics carrot, right? And I'm just the horse that's just gonna follow that carrot, right? And so you gotta
So
find, yeah.
uh, Vancouver Olympics, and a very memorable one for people in the luge world because there was a tragedy in that Olympics. And what was your feeling about that? Being in that's your sport. You've done three of these. You're 50, 40 something years old, right?
Yep,
And
47.
did you question, is this something I should do? I mean, obviously, I think once you start questioning the danger of it, which the danger of this, but once you start thinking about the danger of it and letting it in your mind, that's got to be when it becomes. No one's naive enough to know that there's no danger. But if you let it consume you, and for those who don't know, there was a death in I think Georgia. Was it Georgia? Was the
Yep,
athlete?
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 Nodar from Georgia. And so uh you get to the Olympics, any race, you still have to qualify. And in the Olympics, you take 7 runs, and on at least one of the runs, you have to be within 5% of the fastest time that run. And the last run, the last couple of runs were on the Friday, and then Friday night was the opening ceremonies, and then our race is Saturday and Sunday. We take 2 runs on Saturday, 2 runs on Sunday, and then we're done. We have the best schedule. We get to come into the village a few days early, and then we're done early, and the rest of the time we're watching the other guys compete. It's great. So they had told us on Friday. They said, "Hey, as soon as you finish your 7th run, get dressed quick because we're gonna have some buses. We're up in Whistler, 2-hour drive from Vancouver. That's where the track is, and so we're gonna pick you up on buses. You'll have a box lunch there, and but we got to get you to opening ceremonies, right? So don't dilly dally." And so I finished my run, and I'm about 100 yards away from the finish line, and I'm watching Nodar come down. Nodar from Georgia, the country Georgia, and he's nailing it. And I'm standing next to Levon, his buddy, his teammate, and and Nodar he's only 21, but he's a good slider. He's been sliding for a long time. He's better than me, and he gets to curve 16, the finish curve, and he did a mistake that I do almost every time when I'm coming down. Well, at that point, you're going over 90 miles an hour, which is a lot faster than most other tracks. And by then, I'm almost late into curve 16, and you want to be early. And so if you're late into a curve, usually what you need to do is you crank it. You drive really hard to get yourself back into the proper line. Otherwise, you're going to go up and down, up and down. It's called looping. And next time you watch Cool Runnings, they made that mistake in Calgary. They went into the Kreisel wrong. You'll see they go up and down and up and down. They ran out of track and they flipped. Well, so with me, I come into 16 knowing I'm going to have to crank it. And wham, I crank it and I get through. Nodar, he's always early, but this time it caught him off guard, right? This is like a one in 100 time that he's late and he didn't correct. And he goes up, down, and he tries to correct too late and he hits the inside wall, bounces into a post and dies, right? He crashes into this post at 90 miles an hour. And I'm watching it, right? And the first thought in my mind was, I didn't know you could fly out of a track, right? I didn't know that was possible. Because I'd never seen anybody fly out of a track my whole luge career. And then the next thought was, that could have been me, right? And now they were pushing us into the buses, and we're driving down to Vancouver for the opening ceremonies, and everybody's trying to process it, right? I mean, nobody's talking in that bus. And I'm thinking, man, do I even race tomorrow? Do I even march tonight at the opening ceremonies? Is that disrespecting him, right? And do we race tomorrow? Is that disrespecting him? And finally, when we got to the opening ceremonies, I saw the Olympic rings and all this stuff, and I thought, you know what? No, we have to march and we have to race tomorrow because that's how we respect him, right? By doing what he gave his life. And I'm going to pretend that I'm happy. I'm going to smile. But if you ever watch that, us marching into the opening ceremony, you can tell it's a fake smile. It's a mouth smile. The eyes are not smiling. And then that night, it went until about 1 o'clock in the morning. We finally got back to Whistler, and we're racing, the next morning. And a bunch of us got together and we talked about it, and we came to the same conclusion: we got to do it for him. And so we did, and and it's interesting. That night, something else happened that was very helpful. I've got a friend. His name is Don Akers, and he's kind of like a sports psychologist type guy. And he was an athlete, and he understands how the mind works. And he called me that night. He said, "Okay, Ruben." He walked me through it, right? And like in a couple of minutes, he helped me get my head straight. He said, "Okay, so what happened?" And I says he was late, and he's not usually late, and caught him off guard. But do you know how to fix it? Oh yeah, I'm late all the time. He goes, so it was a fluke, but if it happened to you, it wouldn't be a big deal, right? Okay, cool. So you got that right? Yeah. Okay. So don't think about it anymore because you can handle it. And so that was huge. I mean, having somebody that you trust and then understands to walk you through that, and it just there wasn't any fear at that point. It just kind of he reminded me that yeah, I can handle this. It's fine.
And I think he had maybe a family member race this year.
Yeah, a cousin of his raced, and he was fine, and so pretty amazing but that's how it is, and they're a luge family. I think his grandpa, Nodar's grandpa, I think he was like the head of their federation, and even though they hadn't made it to the Olympics, him and his dad had luged, and then Nodar was going to be the first one from that family. And then they brought in, so it's a luge family, and you see that in our sport. There's some luge families from different countries, and you see that in the bobsled a little bit too.
Yeah, sports and especially Olympics, there's such a fine line between winning and losing. If I guess not winning and not winning, not losing. First, second, third, difference between getting third and fourth. What was the difference between your best run ever and
I'm
the next one?
My best, if I'm a second and a half, okay, behind the top guy, that's a really good day for me. And so that's a huge amount in this sport, a second and a half. But I can barely make it. I made it to all 4 Olympics by the skin on my teeth, all right? But I got to play with the big boys 4 times. And so now when I speak professionally, no matter what the crowd is, right? It could be a bunch of middle school kids. It could be a bunch of CEOs. It could be a bunch of salespeople, whatever, right? Realtors, whatever. My goal is I want, just like Scott Hamilton inspired me, I want to be their Scott Hamilton. I want him walking out of my talk thinking, if that guy can make it to the Olympics, then we can do anything, right? And if I did that, I did my job, because now they have belief. They're ready to face those fears that are holding them back. And they'll take action, and they'll realize that, wow, that was just a smoke screen. I was all scared to call this guy. And now I call him, and I made this huge sale. And so that's my goal whenever I try to, So I use a lot of self-deprecating humor because they introduce you as a 4-time Olympian. People put you up on a pedestal. Well, I'm no good to them up there. I need to. I work hard to climb off that pedestal, and show them that, hey, I'm just like you, man. I'm like your neighbor, okay? And look at what I got to do. I'm a shy guy, believe it or not. I'm an introvert, and I'm a professional speaker. I made C's in English, and my books have been translated to 10 languages and sold tons all over the place. I'm not a great athlete. I'm a 4-time Olympian. Okay, if I don't give you hope, man, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. I agree. The book that came before the speaking. Did it come as the speaking? What made you want to write a book? I mean, I guess everyone thinks about writing a book, but what made you put pen to paper and start writing?
I used to sell copiers in downtown Houston. I lived in Houston most of my life. I've knocked on every door of every floor of every building in downtown Houston several times. We sold copiers and shredders, and only building you can never get in was Enron, right? You couldn't get in there. It was locked up, and we figured, man, even if I can sell a pencil to somebody in Enron, that shows that I'm the best in the world, right? So we kept going in. They walk us out. Nobody ever sold. And everybody wondered what's going on in there. And when we found out, I thought, man, I could have sold them $1 million worth of shredders, right? That would have been great. But anyways, that's what I did. And about a month before the Salt Lake City Olympics, 2002, this little kid in my neighborhood, a little fifth grader, he goes, "Hey, Ruben, when you come back from the Olympics, will you be my show and tell project in school?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And the only reason I agreed was I thought show and tell, 20 kids in a classroom, they're all showing something off. So it'll probably be 5 minutes. I brought the sled, the helmet, the Olympic torch, because I was a torchbearer. I thought no prisoners, right? I'm finally going to get my gold medal. I'm very competitive, all right? No matter what it is, I want to win. And so I go, the principal takes me to this room. There's 200 kids sitting in the floor. He says, "You got 45 minutes. Well, they turned it into an assembly, but they didn't tell me. And I thought I was going to die. Okay. I never took a speech class in my life. That door looked so inviting. And I said a prayer. I said, "God, what do I do now?" And what I felt I needed to do was just tell them your story and give them some pointers to help them reach their dreams. And I did. And afterwards, the principal goes, "Man, you got a gift. You're better people we pay. People who pay." I said, "Well, you get paid for show and tell?" He says, "No, it's a speaking profession, man. Don't you know anything?" And he was so in my face about it. The next 3 days, I thought, you know what? That was fun. Sure beats cold calling buildings. If I can sell a copier, I can sell a Ruben too. And so I quit my job 3 days later. Don't recommend it, okay? But I did. I figured if I can sell a Ruben, I can sell, if I can sell a copier, I can sell a Ruben. Started calling all the schools in Houston. And the first year and a half was mostly schools. And then because I have a sales background, it became more and more corporate, right? Lots of sales kickoffs. And about 3 months after speaking for those kids, I'm on food stamps. Okay. I mean, top of the world in February. Living the dream, March, April, May was great. I'm speaking all over the place, making money. It was great. But the summer was dead, right? There's no school. And for 3 months, no money. We almost lost our house. We shot our credit. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I tell everybody to find a coach or a mentor, follow somebody, find somebody that's already done what you want to do. I'm not even taking my own advice. And I found a guy in Houston who's a successful speaker. It's got to be somebody that's got fruit on the trees, right? Somebody that's done it. And the first time we meet, this guy tells me, "I don't care if you're a 10-time Olympian, unless you write a book, no one's going to take you seriously because the author is considered the authority of his subject. He wrote the book on it." I told him, "I can't write a book. I made C's in English." He says, "You got a great story. You write it down. We give it to some A students. They clean it up for you, okay? That's just grammar." I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. He goes, "Yeah, it's called editing. All right, so shut up and sit down." I mean, this guy just banging. That's how I learned the speaking business. So I wrote it so that was The Courage to Succeed. That was my first book. And so it was something that I needed to do to help my speaking business. And then now that I know how to write the book, I started writing other ones, right? And that was how that worked. And so I am, guys, the Ruben you're seeing now, which is about the same one you would see if you were watching me on stage, that's Superman, okay? But I'm Clark Kent in real life. I'm down. I mean, a very quiet introvert. I'm comfortable hiding behind a book. At a party, I'm the guy hiding behind the plant, all right? But you get me talking about the Olympics or personal development, I turn into Superman for a little bit. And so it works out. Total God thing. I mean, I'm a lot better speaker than I am a loser. I'll tell you that. But if I hadn't done the luge, I wouldn't be able to speak.
That's the way it should be. The stuff that you're passionate about, that you're really confident about, passionate about, and just enjoy talking. I mean, that's the ideal thing to have discussions about. The ideal thing for you to be in business with. And I have found that myself. I was selling anti-money laundering solutions, and I was doing okay at it, doing well at it. But it didn't interest me at all. You start getting me talking about events and sports and entertainment, and man, it's a totally different person. And you can tell how excited people get about it. And that, you know, uh,
Yeah,
encourages people to want to engage with you on that subject.
yeah, yeah. That's why it's so important to, you've heard this a million times, but you gotta, you gotta do something that you're passionate about. That's got to be your work, right? Because see, if you're not passionate about it, you'll just do enough, the bare minimum to get through. But if you're passionate, then you become into a different person, right? You become more detail oriented. You want to make sure that you do everything you do will help you move forward. You get good, right? Because it's in your heart and you're excited. And if you're if you catch that passion and you're doing something that's passionate, you automatically become a better leader because everybody wants to follow somebody's on fire, right? And so yeah, if you're one of those people who are not happy with their job, you're just doing, man, start doing what you need, because that's how you make a better place. Just chase that dream, follow that passion, and do something that's exciting. Right? Well, I wanted to play in the NBA. Sometimes people come after me, right? After the talk, I'm sitting at the book table and they're asking questions. He goes, how do you know what your dream is? Some guy in his 50s might ask me, oh, how do you know? I said, well, what's your dream when you were 10 or 12 years old? Okay, think about that because that'll kind of guide you. That might steer you towards an industry. Well, I wanted to play in the NBA, right? Well, this guy's like 5'2" and he's 200 pounds and he's 55. Well, hey, crazier things have happened. You may still, play in the NBA, but sounds to me like basketball might be the key. Maybe you can sell basketballs. Maybe you can work for your local team. Maybe you can coach, your church basketball league, whatever. Just you got to do something that's involved with basketball, and you'll automatically be better because that'll make your heart happy.
Yeah,
Simple stuff. Success is simple. Not easy, but it's simple.
no, I think people understand sort of what they want to do, and it's not an easy question. What's your dream job? But you should have a not as difficult time figuring out the periphery of it, like where should you be, and then once you find out where should you be, you try and tackle it that way. And the first attempt might not be it. Right? You go back to the drawing board
Yeah,
and say, all right, well, that wasn't it. But now I learned that maybe I'm geared towards this or that within the industry. I think, it's important to understand what you want, also understand what you're good at, right? What you want, what am I good at,
yeah,
and where is it, what is more possible. And competition is good. There's nothing wrong with heading straight first into a competitive market with a lot of people competing, but there's also something to be said about being in something where there's not as many people competing, and so the barrier to entry might be something that you should look into more.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, it probably your first attempt, probably your first 5 attempts may not work, okay, but not you. At least you're headed in the right direction, okay. And most millionaires, they went bankrupt a couple of times before they figured out how to be a millionaire. I mean, that's just what it takes. You want to succeed fast, be willing to fail fast, right? Because you fail, you extract. You got to find the lesson, right? If you fail and you don't find the lesson, you wasted that failure, right? You celebrate your wins, but you analyze your defeats, right? And so if you want to win fast, be willing to fail fast. You want to win big, be willing to fail big. Okay,
Yeah,
and
take your
that's how you
chances.
learn.
Take your chances and bet on yourself every day of the week. It's 2022. You have to pick an Olympic sport. You're brand new. You're 21 years old. What sport are you recommending?
Now,
Yeah,
well,
today.
depends.
Because there's a
You got
lot
to,
more sports now. A lot more
yeah, I
sports,
know.
things that are
I know.
more, ping
Well,
pong. And
yeah, well, it depends. I got a ping pong table there. We play ping pong. We have some massive battles, okay? But I'm not good enough to play ping pong. There's 10-year-old Chinese kids that whoop me. I'd be happy to make 3 points on them, right? So
I
ping pong was not going to be my vehicle, right? So you have to analyze what your strengths are, and based on your strengths, you have to find a vehicle that fits you. I hated the luge, okay? I was so scared. I white knuckled it for 25 years, but the luge was the vehicle. The Olympics was the dream. I focused on the dream. Okay, successful people, they think about what they want, Unsuccessful people, they think about what they don't want, right? You don't focus on the crashes, you don't focus on the obstacles, you focus on the dream, because the dream gives you energy and strength and power, everything you need to bust through those obstacles. And so, and you surround yourself with winners, right? You got to have like Mark Moyer, right? What you guys do there that's iron sharpening iron. You guys are in like a little group of people that helps each other out. That's important. Got to have a dream team of people that make you sharper, right? And then you start hitting your dreams. People start calling you lucky. That's how it works.
Well, luck is a little bit of it, but you don't get with all luck. What was
No.
the advantage or ease of making the second one and the third one and the fourth one? What was the different levels of I wouldn't say it's not easy, but was it, once you made the first, was making the second one easier? Was the third
Yeah.
one? Which do you think?
Sure.
Obviously the first one is the toughest ever,
Yeah.
right? After
Yeah.
that, did it go 2, 3, 4, or did it go one and then the fourth one was the toughest and then maybe go backwards because you're in it longer and the competition?
You have to adjust, right? You always have to adjust somehow.
Yeah.
I It's like football players, right? The running back, they say run to daylight, right? You got all these monsters trying to kill you, and you see a little daylight, you run there, right? And that's how you do it. And so I run to daylight. I got to figure out where the next opportunity is. But after 2 years of sliding, I had my first clean run. A clean run means you didn't even brush any of the walls, right? And that's a huge milestone for a loser, right? I mean, you control the sled, and you're not necessarily very fast, but it's a big milestone. So I go to coach, and I'm so excited. Coach, I had a clean run. He doesn't even crack a smile. Coach, you didn't hear me? I had a clean run. And this guy's this Austrian guy. He's been sliding, 3-time world champion. His standards are so high. And, he goes, yes, I hear, but good is not good enough. Olympics 4 runs. Okay, you must be consistently good. Come on, coach. Come on. Why don't you buy me a beer? Okay. He goes, you get me 4 in a row, I buy you a beer. I still haven't done 4 in a row. Okay.
So the guy in the
So,
beer.
yeah. So at the Olympics, the first one, Calgary. I made Calgary. You take your first 2 runs the first day. And then that night, my head got messed up. It's like it hit me. Oh my gosh, I'm in the Olympics. This is right. And the nerves. And on my third run, I was awful. I mean, I just took myself off the race. Right. I just hit a bunch of walls because I was nervous. And then the fourth run, hey, it didn't matter anymore. And I had my best one, right? Like a personal best on the fourth one because it didn't matter. And so that didn't happen on my second Olympics. I had consistent runs later on in my career. Does that make sense? Just because it doesn't phase you anymore. You've already been there. Okay, I know what to expect. I know how to handle it. I'm just going to go get the job done. So that's just part of growing up.
What was the highlight of being in the Olympics? Was it the opening ceremonies? Was it?
Yeah, it's the opening ceremonies. I mean, Calgary was great. I mean, they had been trying to get the Olympics for about 20 years, and they kept getting beat by other cities. And I'm from Houston, which is, Houston is oil and cowboys, basically, right? And Calgary is the same way. It's oil and cowboys, very friendly. So it was awesome. It was a big party. Albertville, the food was incredible. Albertville, France, it was gourmet food, ridiculous. Okay, I didn't know there's so many kinds of fine cheeses, but they didn't. We didn't feel welcome. You asked for anything. Hey, can I have some more towels for my room? I'm sorry for you. We're gonna do this. I mean, that was your standard answer, and that's a bunch of us quit because of bad customer service. We were so sick of being treated that way that we just quit. We thought we busted our rear ends for 4 years for this. And then coach talks me into Salt Lake. Salt Lake was the best. Salt Lake, because he said, Ruben, you regret it if you don't go. U.S. Olympic Spirit is the best. You must come back. I don't want to regret anything. So I got started training again, and I made Salt Lake, and that was the best. I mean, it was ridiculous. So they were so friendly, and they treated us so nice. And then another, 6 or 7 year, I'm like the Brett Favre of luge. Okay, I just can't. I totally get why Tom Brady came back, because because, why not? It's so exciting to be,
Yeah, when you're on the top too. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
that's a no-brainer. And
yeah.
so the fourth one, uh, Vancouver, just didn't feel the same, and it was all temporary buildings. It didn't have at Salt Lake City. We stayed at the University of Utah, which is really nice. At Calgary, we stayed at the Calgary University. Right, they took all the students out, and we were staying in the dorms and ate there. It just had a better feel, and for some reason, Vancouver just wasn't the same. But
And
but I'm still glad I went. I mean, it was great.
well, I was going to say, my question would be, where was the best place that being an Olympian took you? You did 3 out of your 4 was North America,
Yeah.
Canada, US. Part of the intrigue or some of its pain is going to different parts of the world that you've never even heard of or never been anywhere near. France, obviously, you said was not as great as experience as maybe it should have been. Was there anywhere else that the Olympian Olympics took you training wise or?
Oh yeah. Well, between luge and and speaking professionally, I've been to 50 countries, so I've been all over. Um,
Do you have a
San
favorite?
Diego was great. Man, Stockholm. Stockholm's my favorite. No, no, Stockholm is great. My favorite is Barcelona. Barcelona, Spain.
Okay.
Amazing. I mean, just and me. I was born in Argentina, so being Hispanic, you got that. You got this Hispanic vibe, but it's yeah, Barcelona's incredible.
What's on your bucket list to go that you haven't been to?
Man, um, I'd like to go to Cortina d'Ampezzo. That's up in the Dolomites. That's where we're going to have the Winter Olympics next time
Okay.
in Italy. And I'd like to go to Florence and to Rome, and see some of those the Colosseum and see the art in Florence. That would be great, and it will be. I mean, it's just a matter of time. It's got to get a gig there.
You've
Let
been
somebody
asked
else.
to be a part of the coaching team of the Olympics?
Sorry.
Have you been asked to be part of the coaching team of the
I
Olympics?
coached in Torino, 2006, and I didn't like it. You're standing up on the side of the track, right? Usually, you're standing on top of the wall of the track, and you're seeing them go by, and then I thought, man, they're having all the fun. They're up on the sled. I'm up here freezing my tail off. I'd rather coach people like this, where it's warm, or from the stage where I get to meet them. That's my deal. I'm never, you know, that's and see, that's not my thing, right? So
Right.
I wouldn't be happy if I was doing that. So you got to figure out what fits you. And there's coaches that'll say, no, I would never want to be on stage. I'd rather be here. Oh, great, then be there, right?
No, you got to know where you belong
Yeah.
in a way. Is there anything next for you that you haven't done? You've done a TED Talk, you're a keynote. Is there something that you haven't tried in life that you're looking to do, or is it just going to be a lot more of the same? And by the way, nothing wrong with a lot more of the same, which is pretty great.
I'm a private pilot, and I always want to have my own plane, but it's so expensive, especially with the price of gas now. But
Yeah.
looking up there because I got pictures of a powered parachute, right? It's like a trike with a parachute on top and the motor, and I want to get me one of those. That's something I can fly out of a field. I don't even have to be in an airport, and it's just a matter of getting the money and getting ready to. I got a little sailboat and I'm selling the little sailboat. I'm buying a catamaran in the next few weeks,
Wow.
Hobie cat, right? Because I want to, speed on the water, right? That looks like fun. So I want to learn how to do that well. But I've climbed Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa, and that was great. I ran with the bulls. I'm looking at pictures, right? That's why I look left and right. I ran with the bulls in Spain a couple times. That was great. But yeah, I think the catamaran and the PPC, the powered parachute, can be keep me busy. The fun stuff, right? Fun stuff. And teach kids. I like show and tell, So two-seater, take kids up for a ride and maybe, they discover that they want to be a pilot, right? And just to do that, I think that'll be so much fun.
I think it just came to me now when you start talking about this adrenaline junkie in a way, like non-fear. Like, do you love roller coasters? Do you base
Not roller
jump?
coaster.
Stuff like
No,
that.
it's funny. I've read many biographies over the years, and Chuck Yeager, right, the guy that broke the sound barrier. He doesn't like roller coasters, and it's because he's not in control. And I don't like him either because I want to be in control. I want to be driving that thing. Um, and so I don't like sitting in the passenger seat in the car. I'd rather be driving.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
Yeah,
but I get
sense.
bored easy. Yeah, I get bored easy, so I got to do something once in a while just to shake the cobwebs, I guess. And but you know what? When I went to Pamplona, I do my due diligence. Okay, I read 3 books about Pamplona, and I called one of the authors who'd run with the Bulls for about 20 years in a row. This guy knew what he was doing. I told him, "Give me some tips, man. Give me some. I don't want to die." And he just gave me a handful of real simple tips that potentially, saved my life. Right? It turns out the drunks are worse than the bulls. Everybody's got liquid courage down that. 3,000 drunks and 6 bulls, right? Bad mix. But he told me a few things, and so you got to find the easiest way to reach a goal. Find somebody that's done it. Find
Yeah,
somebody that's done it, and just
good.
ask them for. Oh, but I don't want to impose. They're so busy. I don't want to waste their time. Look,
No
you
need
know
to
why?
reinvent the wheel.
Sorry.
No need to reinvent the wheel.
No, no, they'll tell you the shortcut. I mean, I didn't know that thing that find, just write the book and then we'll give it to some A students to clean it up. I didn't know you could do that, right?
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know. You already have this mental block that I can't write a book because I make C's in English. Done. And your coach says, no, do this, this, and this. Done. What's your next problem? So saves you
Yeah.
time.
Very. Yeah, I think people don't really understand that it's the roadblocks are not generally as high as they seem. Like you climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Like when I used to do things, I'd hit that first roadblock and I felt like it was Mount Kilimanjaro, but it really wasn't. It was a little small one. You just got to get over it. And there'll be other mountains, but it's just
Oh yeah.
getting over that first one is really where it gets people, and they just stop and that's it.
Yeah. And so that's why I want to inspire people. That's my main goal from stage because I got to get them through that roadblock, that fear that they have that's holding them back to get to the point where they got a little bit of courage and belief, and they face that fear and oh my gosh, I didn't die, and that went bad, and now they got a win. All right, they got a little win, and that feeds into the next one and the next one, and then you get these emails. It's crazy in this business. I'll get an email, and they always start the same way. I heard you speak 2 years ago. It's like there's a 2-year gestation period between the time that you get inspired and you actually do something, right? He goes, "Hey, I heard you speak 2 years ago, and I lost 50 pounds, or I paid off my credit cards, or I went on that trip with my family, whatever their group, or I
Feeling.
started a new business. Man, that makes me feel like $1 million, right? Because it makes
Yeah,
you realize that you're making a difference.
great
And
feeling.
yeah. So that's why you have to approach that person, right? That person has already done it. Because once you hit that dream and you tell them, they're gonna feel like $1 million because they will know that they made a difference. They created a ripple effect of success. Yeah.
Yeah, a few more questions, and then we're going to get you at it with our finale here. Who is the greatest Olympian in your mind, and what's your favorite sport to watch, Olympic sport to watch outside of sliding, any type of sliding?
I love watching track and field because I am so amazed at those athletes, those super athletes. They run, they jump, they throw so well. And I'm just in awe, right, of their raw athletic ability. And so that's probably my favorite. My favorite sport to watch is soccer. Right, I was born in Argentina. We're soccer fanatics. I can't wait this summer. World Cup. Right,
Yeah,
first 2 weeks. That's the first round. Those are just a bunch of lousy matches. Right, I'll watch Argentina, but that's it. Second 2 weeks, now you're down to the top 16 teams, and now every match is a good match. And so I'll be glued to the TV. So I love soccer at that level, right? But I hardly
yeah,
ever watch sports on TV. I'd rather be playing ping pong or playing pickleball or
yeah.
doing something than watching it on TV.
Scott Hamill, you said was who inspired you. Is that your favorite Olympian of all time, or
Well,
yeah?
he has a special place because of that, and I'm actually going to get to meet him next week. I'm speaking in
That's
Nashville.
awesome.
That's where he lives. So we're going to have lunch together, and I'm
Full circle,
excited.
right?
Huh?
Full circle
Full circle. There you go.
comes
Yeah,
full circle.
and I'm that's exciting, and so I can't tell you who the greatest Olympian is. There's so many. I mean, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story of this lady I think is a great Olympian. I mean, super great Olympian. I'm at the I'm at the Salt Lake City Olympics, 39 years old. Everybody's asking me if I'm a coach. So I'm thinking, okay, I guess this will be my last one because obviously I'm too old. And I like to drink coffee. So I would go to the coffee shop every couple times a day. Just imagine like a Starbucks, but it's inside the village, right? And everything's paid for. And I started asking other athletes, hey, tell me your story. How'd you get here? And the stories were great. I mean, the things they all had to overcome something, right? And I see this gal, she's about my age, mid 30s, and I was late. She was mid 30s. And I asked her, and she was a Hungarian bobsledder, okay? Ildiko Streli from Hungary. I asked her, well, what's your story? He says, ever since I was a little girl, I want to be an Olympic bobsledder, but it wasn't even a sport. They didn't have women's bobsled. But
Hmm.
I live here in Park City, Utah. She was a ski instructor at the time. They announced 5 years ago they're going to have women's bobsled. So I maxed out my credit cards. I bought a bobsled. I went to bobsled driving school. I went down to Hungary, held tryouts. You got to have somebody really strong and powerful to push. And I found this gal. Her name is Eva Kurti. Eva Kurti. She was like one of the top discus throwers in our country. And we started training. But it was the first time, right? So there was going to be only 15 sleds get to compete. At the end of the 2 years, year and a half before the Olympics, I get breast cancer. And I had to get a double mastectomy. And I'm laying at the hotel, not in the hotel, laying in the hospital, just wiped out. I'm thinking, it's over. I barely have energy to walk. I'm being in the Olympics, forget it. And she's mentally done. And Eva, her brakeman, because they call it brakeman, even though it's
Yeah.
even though it's women, right? But her brakeman, she gives her Lance Armstrong's book about how he overcame cancer to win the Tour de France. And she gets inspired. And she says, you know what? I won't do it for myself. I'm going to do it for cancer survivors to show them that life of cancer will knock you down, but doesn't have to knock you out. She paints her sled pink, puts a pink ribbon on it, and it's Sled Full of Hope. That's the name of it. And we started training again. And then we were number 16th. We missed it, okay? But at the last minute, Canada decided not to send their second sled because it wasn't up to their standards, and that bumped us up to 15th, and we got to go. I gave her a big old hug. I told her, man, I'd rather know you than all the gold medalists in the world because you got the Olympic spirit. And every time I see her, I say, hey, Ildiko, how you doing? And then after a while, I thought I was a stalker, right? Because you take off. But that's the Olympic spirit, you know? That's what they make movies about.
We had Catherine Bertine on. I don't know if you met her through Mark. I met her through Mark, and she was a racer, cyclist, and they were responsible, part of the team responsible for bringing women to the Tour de France, which I had no idea that there was no women's Tour de France for like up until the last 25 years. So it's great to hear that story about like we didn't do it because it wasn't a thing, and now it's a thing, and we went ahead and got it. It's a really great story.
Yeah.
We're going to let you out with the same question we get everyone out of the Wolff Den with. You have 24 hours to spend with anyone in the world. You can't be related to them. They have to be alive. Who are you picking? And what are you guys going to do? And it can't be Mark Hamill because you're about to meet him.
Can't be Scott Hamilton. No.
Scott Hamill.
Oh,
sorry,
man.
Star Wars.
Golly. Shoot. If you'd have asked me that 10 years ago, I would have said Mandela, right? Or I would have said I would have loved to meet or John Wooden, the great basketball coach.
Yeah.
Right? Those would have been probably my number 1 and 2. Right now, I'd like to meet Messi. You know, just Lionel Messi, the soccer player, right? Little tiny guy.
They booed him and Ronaldo the other day because people are crazy. They're just nuts.
No, you can't read the papers if you're in sports. You know, don't read your press clippings because it'll hurt you either way. Whether they're cheering you or booing you, it'll mess up your head. But I think I'd like to meet him just for just for fun, right? You know.
That's a great choice. Well, he's on the list. We've had a lot of people guess, and no one ever said Messi. We've had some foreign athletes for sure. I think Federer and a couple.
You know what? Messi just got second place. I'll tell you who I want to meet. I want to meet Ukraine's president. That guy is awesome.
Okay, yeah.
That guy. Forget Messi. Messi's down. No. That I don't even remember. Zelensky, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That guy, man. Yeah. What a leader.
Something. It's
And I
imagine what
hate that they
things.
call him a comedian because he was a lawyer. Then he started, he built this network over there, and then he basically booked himself, right, to be the star of this show. But he's a businessman and a lawyer, right? The comedy, that's just the part he played. Give me a break. Uh, anyway,
Yeah,
yeah, that's number one.
incredible story would be something else to get in a room with him. Check out follow the leader tedtalk.com. That brings you to the website. You can find out about all the Olympic stories and the books, a little bit more about Ruben, but encourage you to check it out. I listened to it the other day, and it was very well done. I mean, they're all, there's not a whole lot of TED Talks that get published that are not well done, right? You don't see a whole lot of them. That's the whole point of a TED Talk. They kind of refine it and filter to make sure it's going to be something worth watching and
Yeah.
listening to. And yours is no different. So I encourage people to take a look. Again, follow the leader tedtalk.com, and looking forward to seeing what comes next from you. Mark Moyer, another event in Win Again community this afternoon at 4 p.m. And we got another episode tomorrow of the Wolff Den. So tune in, have a great night, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Thanks,
Take care.